were virtually no upperclassmen. And I'll guess at these numbers there could have been, say, 1,200 freshmen or something, and I could probably count the upperclassmen on one hand or two hands. It's like there might have been a dozen or so. The freshmen, we ruled the campus. We were the big man on campus. There were no, upperclassmen, so to speak. All right, so the idea came from Pat Glasgow, and I have heard him say that he got the idea sitting on a lifeguard tower over the summer. And he had a very good friend, Bob Ernst, and they were a couple of hardy dudes. And so they said, oh, wouldn't it be great to have the name Anteater? I wasn't too crazy about the name Anteater. I didn't think it showed particular wit. A name that I liked was something like the Banana Slugs, which I believe that Santa Cruz had that.
That's correct, yeah.
And I always thought that was a rather witty, clever name, whereas Anteater, it didn't quite have that wit, because the banana slug, it could slug you perhaps, kind of an extra meaning there. But I couldn't come up with a better name, and we were resolved that we had to have a silly name. And so we settled upon the Anteater. I say we because although it was Pat Glasgow's idea, and I am scrupulous in giving Pat Glasgow and Bob Ernst credit, I was the guy that said, okay, if this is the name that you guys have selected, then this is the name that we're going to promote. You can, however it happens, this name is going to occur. Mm-hmm. The reason we felt strongly that there had to be an Anteater was that the corporate heads of the school wanted a respectable name. And that here you had the beautiful campus designed by William Pereira. The Irvine Land Trust had given this land, obviously within their black heart, they thought, this will really increase values. Mm-hmm. And naturally, these corporate masters wanted a respectable name. Okay, so the powers that be of the Irvine Company, they had some professional artists make up what they thought would be an appropriate mascot. And so they had made the Sea Eagles. Oh. They made up the Toros.
They hired professional artists?
Yes. And these handsome renditions were put on display in the gymnasium. And we, the malleable young freshmen, were supposed to select from these corporate icons acceptable. Very innocuous, again, eagles, Titans, something like that. Well, our idea of rebellion was, something different. We were not going to be pushed around. And Dan Aldrich, who was the chancellor, was a very good sport about this. I mean, he tried to use all of his diplomatic skills. He was never patronizing or condescending, but, he alerted us to the dangers that having an Anteater would bring, or a silly name. But, we were determined. And as an aside, back then, when I was young and didn't know any better, I thought that sports should be fun, and just sports. And at that time, I didn't think that sports should be taken seriously. And I thought, if we had a silly name like the Anteater, then we could never, it would be tough to recruit athletes, and we could never take our sports too seriously, and that it would stay where it should be. Just good fun. Needless to say, with age brings wisdom, and now I realize that sports is a very serious matter, and that for your alumni, they really want their sports to be tough, and so now I'm sorry that we don't have a name perhaps that would be sound more powerful, so that we could get powerful athletes or that would just want to go and destroy the competition. All right, now. So in any case, Pat Glasgow and Bob Ernst thought up this name. So then the question is, how do we promote this?
Yeah.
And I fancied myself as a young advertising executive, and so I said, well, if I want to sell a product, I put the product in front of a quality product itself. If I want to sell tea, I put it in front of a Rolls-Royce radiator. See, it's like our tea is as good as a Rolls-Royce. Mm-hmm. And at the time, believe it or not, Playboy magazine was considered a pretty fancy brand. Now, of course, it has sort of devolved into something very cheesy. You see something associated with Playboy or the Playboy bunny logo, it's about as low rent as you get. But back in 1965, they had Playboy key clubs in half a dozen cities in America. Membership was expensive. And keep in mind, we're selling this product to 18-year-olds, 18-year-old freshmen. And at that age, we thought that Playboy magazine was the height of sophistication. That James Bond and so forth surely would want to be part of that. We want to associate the Anteater with whatever is the young, hip, sexy thing. I can't give you an equivalent today of what is young, hip, and sexy, because if I know about it, then it's not young, hip, and sexy.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we sell the Anteater? Aha! We give it a Playboy bunny look, and so I tried drawing. First, you draw the necktie on the Anteater. We made its ears do something, but at the end of the day, it looked sufficiently like the Playboy logo so that we thought that we could promote that. Then Xeroxed off, 20 or 30 copies, and we had some buttons made that somebody in the art department took a white paintbrush and whatever it was, and made a very handsome pin, maybe no more than an inch in diameter. And it looked great. It just really had the message we wanted to deliver. Small, sophisticated. You vote for the Anteater, you're a pretty cool guy. And I went up to found a political button printing place and had a couple hundred of these made, and was selling them for $1 each, and fancied myself quite the entrepreneur. Well, everybody liked this Anteater, and incidentally, I should say that it was back when the vote was taken. It was this horrid Playboy Anteater that the students were voting on. In fact, there was the Johnny Hart cartoon Anteater that also featured in it, and I guess the name of the Anteater in general. But the specific thing that they were voting for was this, we'll call it the Playboy Anteater. And lest you doubt that it held sway, even a year or two later, when they opened up the bookstore outside in metal or brass or something, this Playboy Anteater was part of the bookstore's exterior sign at the time. So it's like it wasn't something that we used in 2 or 3 months of the campaign and then it quickly disappeared. It was around the campus for a long time. And I think the joke is that in the election, the Anteater won by, some percent of the vote, 55%, El Toro, such and such, and I think none of the above came in second, which sort of tells you that there was no real good opposition campaign that developed. It was...
Okay.
And I guess Dan Aldridge and the faculty sort of hoped that it would just not pass. But I'm here to tell you that the way we arranged the election, the Anteaters were going to win.